First, let's review what a bacteria reservoir is. According to our textbook, a reservoir is the primary habitat where the pathogen originates. So the CDC reports that in the case of typhoid fever, the only known reservoir is humans. No animals or environmental reservoirs have been identified. People that are ill with typhoid fever carry the bacteria in their bloodstream and intestinal tract. A small number of people can recover from the illness but continue to carry the bacteria. These people are called carriers. Both those that are ill and those that are carriers continue to shed the Salmonella typhi bacterium in their feces. So carriers are important because they continue to spread the disease without knowing it, so precautions are overlooked. So here are the different kinds of carriers. First, we have the asymptomatic carriers. These are people who are infected but show no signs or symptoms of the disease. Mentioned earlier, Mary Mallon was the first known carrier in the early 1900s. She was an Irish immigrant that was hired as a cook for a wealthy New York family. After several of the members of the household came down with typhoid fever, an investigation was started and traced back to her. Her life was never the same after that, and she was nicknamed Typhoid Mary. She lived her life in and out of forced quarantine. When she was released from her imprisonment, she was ordered to never return to work as a cook. But when 25 people at a women's hospital came down with typhoid fever, it was discovered that she had returned to cooking under the alias Mary Brown. She was immediately put back in forced quarantine. Okay, now back to the next one, infected carrier. These are people who are ill with the Salmonella typhi bacteria, experiencing the signs and symptoms of the disease. Then we have convalescent carriers. These are people that are recuperating and have no symptoms, but continue to shed the bacteria, making it possible to infect others. Then there's chronic carriers. Even after treatment with antibiotics, a small number of people, after recovering from typhoid fever, continue to harbor the bacteria in their intestinal tracts or gallbladders, which can go on for years. Salmonella typhi has shown a preference for the gallbladder and colonizes the surface of the gallstones, which is how people become long-term carriers. Okay, now we'll move on to transmission. Let's review what is meant by transmission in the context of infectious disease. Transmission is how the disease is spread from one person to another. Since we've already determined that typhoid fever is only passed from person to person, we will discuss the different ways it can be spread. You can get typhoid fever by eating food or drinking a beverage that has been handled by a person that is shedding the Salmonella typhi bacterium. This is what made Typhoid Mary and her job as a cook so deadly. Consumption of food or water that has been contaminated by feces and urine containing the bacteria. This happens most readily in areas with poor sanitation. Then transmission through sexual contact, especially men who have sex with men, has been documented, but it's rare. Now let's move on to the different forms of transmission. First we have direct. This is when contact is made between an infected person and a non-infected person. This can be in the form of touch. The infected person who does not properly wash hands after using the bathroom can transfer the bacteria onto objects that are then touched. The indirect route is these inanimate objects that infected person has touched. Then there's water, soil, and food that all can be infected by feces and urine containing the bacterium. There's a special category known as the oral fecal route, which is when a carrier with inadequate personal hygiene contaminates food during handling and the recipient ingests it. Again, Typhoid Mary lived in a time when hygiene practices were not very good. Another way is the person contaminated with fecal matter touches their mouth, leading to ingestion. There is one other mode of transmission that is the vector transmission. Mechanical vectors include insects that carry the bacteria on their body parts, spreading the bacteria in this way. In the case of Salmonella typhi, the vector is the fly. Flies land on contaminated waste and carry the bacteria on their body parts, spreading it to whatever it lands on.